It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Well, it's just corn tonight, and ain't that just fine? Welcome into Sports Talk. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina Radio Network, back in our plush Learfield Studios, Main Streets, downtown Columbia. Pro is off. Willie P is off. Brian Leonard is here, and I'm here. 800-956-7266. So it's the off week for USC and Clemson. You know, it kind of feels like everything is just Deadsville, with those two being off simultaneously. However, there's other good football being played this week. We'll hear from Wofford coach Mike Ayers later on. We're going to have, of course, the coach and the quarterback with us to reflect on the past weekend and look to the future, which is something I want to do on the show tonight. Couple of things. Number one, which way do you think the seasons are going to move now for Clemson and South Carolina as they hit the bye weekend? One coming off a win and one coming off a loss. Both moving forward. You think both move on to have a great month of November? Last weekend in October, month of November. You see one moving ahead, one slipping back. Which way will the season go for the two teams? We'll talk about that tonight. Also, what's your plans for this off week? It's one of those rare years when South Carolina and Clemson are both off on the same Saturday. You know, I've worked very hard. I've worked very hard since August. Practice, press conferences, games, travel. The off week is here. You know, you would think I'd get a chance to maybe play some golf, kick back and relax, watch baseball, watch other football, maybe go to a game somewhere. What's my reward for all my hard work? What do you think, Brian? It's a wedding.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
Not a bad thing.
It's a wedding. Now, I do thank the bride and groom for selecting a weekend when both teams were off, but on the other hand, you're ruining my weekend. Not really ruining it, but a weekend in Charleston can't be all that bad, except you got to go be with people that, well, you know how it is with family. So I got to go to a wedding this weekend, so I won't be here tomorrow night. Willie P will be back in the hot seat tomorrow night. He's making his way back from Nashville after covering the SEC Media Day down there for basketball. Did a great job. We enjoyed being at Newberry at Bar Figaro. Boy, if you're in Newberry, go check that place out. Bar Figaro, right on, I guess that's right in downtown Newberry, right across from the Hampton Inn. And what a great location that is. And we had a terrific time there last night. And thanks to everybody who helped put that together. So tonight, we got Dabo Sweeney for you. He met with the media after practice last night, and we got that for you. Also, we're going to hear from Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell on his upcoming season. Also, we'll hear from the Gamecocks' Chris Silva, as Willie P had a chance to talk to him in Nashville. We'll have that for you. And the coach and the quarterback. Right now, we have some open lines. 800-956-7266. Our email talkback at sportstalksc.com. And, of course, we hope you're following us on Twitter. At SportsTalkSC is the address on Twitter if you'd like to participate in communicating with us via Twitter, which is, Twitter has become something that I never really thought that it would become. You know, when we first heard about Twitter many years ago, one of our bosses from Learfield said, "Hey, thing that's coming up, it's called Twitter. It's another way to report and get news out to people. You better learn how to use it." And of course, it's become everything. It's become a tool for the news media, of course, but in I think in some aspects it's become the only way that some people communicate with the outside world. And that's why I think we have so many disagreements and arguments, because you can't get your thoughts across in 140 characters, even if you tweet and then follow with another tweet and follow with another tweet. Something is lost in translation. However, we do tweet, and we are involved with it. And if you're not following us, then we'd love to have you at SportsTalkSC. All right, let's jump to your phone calls. Which way do you think the season is going to move for South Carolina and Clemson? What are your plans for this weekend, since you've got no Gamecocks, you got no Tigers? Let's hit the phones. We go to James up in Rock Hill. James, good evening to you, sir. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing great. How are you?
Good. My plans are I'll probably watch Penn State beat the crap out of Michigan, and I might play a little golf. That sounds like a good idea.
You don't have a wedding to go to or anything like that?
No wedding to go to. All my friends usually make their plans during weekends, so they get a letter in the mail with a little bit of money in it.
Good for you. Good for you.
My question is, I think Carolina, Georgia, I think North Carolina's in the mix for him too. I'm just kind of wondering where you think KJ Henry. I know he put on there. I think it's December 20th is what he said he's going to announce.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where you thought he was leaning. I thought at the beginning Clemson really had a good shot, but now I kind of think Georgia's back in the mix, and I think South Carolina's in the mix. So just trying to get what you think on that. I'm going to hang up, listen to you. Love your show, man.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, I wish I could give you an intelligent answer, which is probably what a lot of people wish from me when I try to answer a question, that I'd use some intelligence. Okay, this is not just in recruiting. I say that because, when I don't talk to a kid in recruiting, then it's hard to really know what might happen in advance. And KJ is not reachable at all, as are more and more of these highest recruited players. They just, unless you go visit them at their school or you catch them after a game, you just can't get them on the phone anymore, a lot of them. And they don't communicate through direct message or text message or anything like that. And occasionally I can get his coach on the phone and find out some stuff. So to be quite honest with you, I don't know what the kid is thinking. He's got a lot of moving parts to his recruiting. This weekend, he's taking his official visit to Virginia Tech. He's been to Georgia. He is scheduled to visit Clemson next weekend for the Georgia Tech weekend. And, of course, he's going to take official visits to South Carolina and Alabama to wrap it up. So, listen, I don't like to say something unless I really have a good feel. And the internet recruiting observers, they're all over the map with this guy. One day he's leaning hard to South Carolina. Then it's going to be no doubt Clemson. Now the latest trend is Georgia or Virginia Tech. So, they're all over the map with it. I don't know. And we're just going to have to wait for him to take the rest of his visits. He's the son of a football coach. And so they have a plan, and they know how to handle the recruiting side of things. And they're not deviating from that plan as far as taking their official visits and announcing on December 20th. So it could go really any of those ways. I wish I could give you some truthful insight, but I can't, because I just don't know. I think that he has a good time at every place that he has visited. I know that from a Clemson standpoint, he's been very impressed with them. He's always enjoyed his trips to Clemson. From a South Carolina standpoint, Muschamp has probably worked him as hard, if not harder, than any of the other head coaches, and he's been impressed by that. He had a really good visit, apparently, to Georgia. He's always liked Virginia Tech and Bud Foster and the way that defensive program is run. And Alabama speaks for itself. So there's a little something for everyone in the group there that he is looking at. So I just think we're going to have to wait until December 20th and see which hat he puts on. Thank you very much. Appreciate your phone call. Lines are open, 800-956-7266. You got a recruiting question? We'll give you an honest answer. I can promise you that. If we don't know something, we'll say it. Otherwise, we'll give you what we do know. Back in a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Catch you up on a few important stories of the day. College basketball preseason poll from the coaches out today. Duke is number one by the coaches. State, Kansas, Kentucky, Arizona, Villanova, Florida, Wichita State. Now, at number 9, they voted North Carolina. So, yeah, I don't think any school that plays ineligible players should receive votes. Do you? And North Carolina uses and has used ineligible athletes over the last 15, 20 years. And yet we still give them their due. Virginia's at number 10. Then it's Southern Cal, Miami, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Minnesota, Louisville at number 16. I don't think a school that has been identified as attempting to buy players should get votes from the coaches. This is part of the problem. You know, Brad Brownell said yesterday in an interview up in the upstate in talking about the FBI probe into college basketball, he bluntly said that he has lost players to cheating coaches. He says it's hurt him in recruiting, that he has lost players to cheating coaches. And I said, okay, my thought, well, I wasn't there. I wish I had been. My thought was, okay, that's cool. I can understand that. You do things the right way. You follow the rules. You recruit above board, and you're losing players to coaches who cheat. Why haven't you said something? Why haven't you called them out? Why haven't you gone to the media and say, hey, Coach X cheated to get this player? Because there is in college basketball coaching circles, you know, I guess there's an understanding that, yes, the cheating happens and we're not going to call you out. We're not going to make it known to the public because it goes under the phrase, everybody does it. But not everybody does it. Brad Brownell says he doesn't do it and that he's lost players to other schools who do cheat. So why not say something? I'll say this about Eddie Fogler. He had the gumption and the backbone to call out people he thought were cheating. He would be nasty to other coaches that he thought were cheating, like in the handshake after a ball game or even publicly. You recall what happened at SEC Media Day that time in talking about Florida and some of the things going on there, even though it was never proven that they had done anything illegal, but they, were using Brett Barrup. I think he was a travel agent or an agent. He was helping to funnel players to on trips, and these guys were all ending up at Florida. You know the story. At least he was big enough to be out front and call people out, and that's part of the problem. I mean, if your job is in jeopardy because you can't get the same quality player because others are cheating, you say, and you're not, how can you sit silent? That'd be my question. But that's the way coaches are. Protecting their own, I guess, or they feel like there's nothing they can do about it. They feel like their hands are tied. Anyway, Xavier 17, UCLA's 18, Gonzaga's 19, Northwestern's 20, Purdue 21, St. Mary's 22, Seton Hall 23, Baylor 24, Alabama 25. Did I say Gonzaga? Yeah, Gonzaga 19. So half the Final Four last year not in the coaches' preseason top 25. That would be South Carolina, and that would be Oregon. Sad note to pass along. Sad note. Former Coastal Carolina and USC basketball player Chad Gray killed in a car crash last night near Charlotte. Native of Kingstree, he was 32 years old. I remember Chad Gray quite well. He was a tremendous athlete, football and basketball. You know, he originally committed to Florida State and ended up going down to IMG Academy, I think, signed with Dave Odom in South Carolina, spent a year with the Gamecocks, then transferred to Coastal, where he played really well, finished with a career average over 14 points per game. And so sorry to hear the news that he has passed away at the age of 32. Also, of course, another sad story this week, the passing of former Clemson and Erskine baseball player Blake Holliday. And Erskine announced today it's dedicating this coming baseball season in his memory. He's been named an honorary captain by Erskine for 2018. He died on Tuesday afternoon from a head injury suffered in an ATV accident last week. Couple of tough stories to deal with there. All right, back to the phones we go, and it's Billy in Greenville next with us here on Sports Talk. Hey, Billy, how are you?
Hey, so how you doing?
I'm good.
Hey, I got a football question for you, then I got a comment, and I'll hang up and listen to you. The question with Carolina is, do you see Vanderbilt as a possible trap game? And if they do possibly win 8 games this year, I think it would be a really good year for Muschamp. But do you think you can see a possible upset with the teams remaining? The comment I want to make is with Rick Pitino regarding his answers on the allegations that they gave him. It seems to me like as articulate and as demanding as Pitino was, he would know pretty much everything that was going on. I think he might be in denial right now, or he's been taking lessons from O.J. Simpson and trying to figure out a way to lie and get out of it, because I just don't see how he wouldn't know, like you said, and I'll just hang up and listen later.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your phone call. To your first question, like the Gamecocks, Vanderbilt has this week off, so you'll have 2 teams playing coming off an open week. Vandy, they're starting to hit that part of the season where their injuries pile up and they start to struggle. They're 0-4 in the league, 3-4 overall. I don't think they'll beat the Gamecocks in Columbia. South Carolina should be a healthy, focused, well-prepared team for Vanderbilt. Playing at home, homecoming, should be a sellout crowd, should be an electric arena. Everything should be in the Gamecocks' favor. So, no, they won't be looking past Vanderbilt. When you've had a week off, you'll be hungry to play football. They'll be hungry to get to the 6th win category, which would make them bowl eligible. 4-2 in the league, which will clinch at least a 500 record in the league. You know, the month of October holds a lot of promise for the Gamecocks right now. And even beyond, Will Muschamp on his call-in show last night said Deebo Samuel could be back by the end of the season, maybe the Clemson game. And he also said Casey Crosby and Rico Dowdle could be back, could be back for a bowl game. So, and then they're going to have all those offensive linemen who've been hurt. They should be back for Vanderbilt. So there's a lot of promise here left for South Carolina. Beat Vanderbilt. I do think they'll beat Florida in Columbia. So I think the Gamecocks will be no worse than 5-3 in the SEC. And we'll have 8 wins at the end of the regular season, at the least. The Clemson game now, you know, in the spring, summer, I was leaning Gamecocks' way for conversation purposes. But, yeah, what the hey. But then the way Clemson started out and the way the Gamecocks were struggling, I was thinking, don't see it this year. But, you know, Clemson is showing some vulnerability in a couple of areas after that Syracuse loss. Quarterback situation is a little bit dicey right now with the injury to Bryant. And is he going to be hampered by that ankle the rest of the season? Can he continue to play the way he did prior to the injury and run with reckless abandon, or do they try to protect him and keep that ankle from being hit again? Some questions there. So that game remains kind of to be seen. But I think the Gamecocks can get to 8 wins without any questions. Be right back. Just to answer the other part of the question from the caller previously about Rick Pitino, I mean, you know, he claims innocence and all that, but again, the recent history with him, it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt. I know he took a polygraph test given to him by his attorneys, yet with everything that's been going on with that program, been on probation, been hit with academic penalties, other things, as we know, it's just hard to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's what happens when you have a track record like that going against you. He might be a Hall of Fame coach. He might say a lot of the right things. He might plead absolute innocence to everything. But did they overreact at Louisville from an administration standpoint by moving that quickly to punt him when this thing first came out? I think they were just trying to cut their losses as quickly as possible and felt like this was just enough, that they'd had too much already, and this was the proverbial straw on the camel's back. All right, time now for the coach and the quarterback. We welcome in Chuck Reedy, the coach, never played quarterback, and we welcome in Steve Tannehill, who is a coach and also played quarterback. Chuck, you never played quarterback, right? You were a running back in the day. Am I correct?
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Steve, were you a quarterback from the get-go? Did you play any other position?
I played a little free safety, but I was quarterback from first day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you like to run downhill as a free safety or back up?
Just intercept pass.
That was your thing, huh? I got you. All right, good to have you with us, Coach. How was your trip to wherever y'all went?
Our trip was great, Bill, and we were at Isla Mujeres, which is an island off of Mexico, and but they had Dish TV, so we got to see all the games. I was surprised.
Oh, good.
Yep.
So you're clued in. So let's start with you. Reaction to Clemson going down at Syracuse.
Well, this has been their their trend the last several years. I mean, they find a way against teams that aren't very good to either make it very close or to find a way to lose. And obviously that's what they did the other night. The situation with the quarterback certainly didn't help. And I think that we realize now how big a factor Kelly Bryant is in the running game. And when we've discussed this a little bit before with, Carolina being a one-back spread team trying to run the football without a running quarterback is very difficult. And that's what happened, or what certainly Clemson found out the other night. Without Kelly Bryant being able to run the ball, and they only had one back that could run it, their running game was not very good. And, and not only that, they didn't play the kind of defense they've been playing. Just a bad night for them. Puts them, they still control their own destiny. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see how they respond.
Yeah. Steve, it was pretty evident early on that Kelly Bryant was hobbling. Why do you think Clemson put him out there in that situation? As a coach, where do you draw the line between putting a player out there who's not 100% and risking further injury versus trying to win the ball game?
Well, I think that they went with probably Kelly's, saying he could go and doing all the tests, and felt like he could give them enough, maybe to get a lead and then take them out. I think he practiced during the week. It's just the trainers and those type of people kind of make those decisions, and then the athlete himself has to have a little say if he can go or not. And I said it last week on the show, as a team player, I'd love to see him, quarterbacks be tough and try to at all costs to play. But in this situation, Andy got hurt, even more, not so much the ankle, but a concussion. So it definitely hurt Clemson for sure.
So as a quarterback, I'm sure you've had to deal with ankle injuries from your past and trying to get over those kind of injuries. How long do these things linger, and can he get back with a week off? Can he get back to where he was, or are they going to have to be protective of him knowing that he could re-injure that ankle at any time?
Well, the worst thing about an ankle is sometimes an ankle sprain is worse than breaking your ankle. And that's all is a high ankle. The best thing for your ankle is to stay off of them, but that's awful hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the week off definitely helps, and rest, and probably 3 or 4 treatments a day in that cold tub, and I would think he'd be able to play the next week for sure.
Chuck, do you think that the reason they went ahead and put Brian out there and went with him as long as they could, and Steve might be right, they were thinking, build a lead, get him out of there, but do you think they have confidence in either one of the backups to go in there and be a guy that can help them win ball games?
No, well, they say they do, and they say the right things, but I think if they'd have had enough confidence, I think they'd have sat him. I think Steve's right. I think they felt like they could go in with him, and he could manage the game, make some throws, and and certainly they felt, I had to feel going up there that they could, they could get a lead and then get him out of there. But no, if they'd have had enough confidence, just based upon the fact that when he started the game, he certainly wasn't full speed. You have to think they would have held him if they'd have felt good enough about the other guy.
What'd you think of Cooper? First of all, what'd you think of them going with Cooper over Johnson, because you thought Johnson looked so good against Wake? And then what'd you think of Cooper's performance?
He didn't beat them, but he didn't do anything to win the game for him. And that's the difference. Kelly Bryant, Kelly Bryant's he's going to help you win the game by, especially with his feet. And obviously, Cooper, he just wasn't able to make the plays that they needed, to win the game. Mm-hmm. And, it really kind of eventually kind of fell on the 2 running backs, and, and they weren't able, to other than, a couple long runs, but as far as just establishing a good running game, they weren't able to do that just with, as I mentioned, with just the one back spread offense.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears to the Gamecocks, Steve. And anytime South Carolina can beat Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, out of the SEC, the guys that they play regularly, who've always had the upper hand, regardless of the situation with the other team and regardless of how they do it, that's a big day for South Carolina. What'd you think of how they held on and won that game in Knoxville?
Well, you can't give up the seam route, trying to hold on to the lead, and they did a good job after that. Tennessee tried to run the play Clemson ran last year against Alabama, and our defensive backs did a good job of staying on their guy, and they got the win. Anytime you can go on the road and win an SEC game, it's big, and to do it at Tennessee, I understand Tennessee's not maybe as good, but it's still a big win. It's still an SEC win, and it's a win on the road. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's, especially the way they play it, I don't think the offense is very good. The 4th and 1, again, we're running outside zone into 2 unblocked defenders. It's the snow. It's just not a very good call. But the kicker made some kicks, and they found a way to win. And I said it last week, and I think the kids play super hard for Coach Muschamp, and that's important. And I think they played to the final whistle, and then that's what helped them find a way to win.
All right, guys, hang on. Coach Reedy, if you want to tend to your dog there, go ahead. And I hear him. I hear him yelping in the background. And we'll come back to you here in just a moment. It's the coach and the quarterback, Chuck Reedy, and Steve Tannehill with us here on Sports Talk. Get their thoughts about what's ahead for USC and Clemson as we turn towards November. Be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. On a Thursday night from downtown Columbia, back to the coach and the quarterback in just a moment. Remind you, we're brought to you by South Carolina Electric Cooperative, your local electric cooperative, sponsors of the annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Find out more about what the co-ops are doing across the state. Visit ecsc.org and save the date, December 9th, for the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Chuck Reedy and Steve Tannehill with us for a couple of more minutes. So we're at the not the calendar break, but maybe the emotional break of the season for the two teams. Chuck, as a coach, how do you deal with a bye week if you're South Carolina coming off a win, you're Clemson coming off a loss? How do you do whatever you have to do and then go ahead and have that big November that can really make it a special season?
Yeah, well, look, obviously South Carolina coming into the break, I mean, they're coming in on a high. They've had a couple of really, really good wins and, feel really good about where they are. I think anybody at this point would have been very happy to be 5-2. And just looking ahead for them and looking back as well. Two things. Number one, what they've done the last 2 weeks, they hadn't beaten themselves. And that's what they had done early against NC State. They didn't beat themselves, which gave them a chance to win. And then secondly, sometimes it's not how good you are. It's how good your opponents are.
Mm-hmm.
And, the last two teams they played aren't very good. The next two teams they're going to play aren't very good. So, we're sitting here looking now, if they continue to play well, don't beat themselves, we're looking at maybe 8 wins, which I think, at the beginning of the year would have been, just about any Gamecock fan would have been ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
We were thinking 7 would have been a step forward, but I think we're looking realistically, at a chance to win 8 if they continue to play the way they have the last 2 weeks. And by that I mean, not that they're playing great, but they're playing solid on defense. They're not beating themselves. They're not turning the ball over. They're not doing stupid things. They've got a real chance.
Yeah.
Clemson needs a break. They need to get, what they need is to get Kelly Bryant healthy. And, because, the thing about them, if you look back, all of a sudden Louisville and, those 3 teams, 3 top 15 teams they beat don't look so good.
Yeah.
And maybe North Carolina State and, even Georgia Tech. I mean, they may have some tougher games ahead than what they, had earlier. So, they need to regroup and get him healthy and, they need to make a strong stretch run.
Yeah. Just to make sure you're clear now, the Gamecocks play Vanderbilt, but then they go to Georgia. So
I'm sorry, I forgot about Georgia. I didn't mean to. I'm talking about Florida and Vanderbilt.
Right. So
let's throw Georgia out of there.
Yeah.
I'm not counting them and not being very good because I'm not so sure they're not the second best team in the country right now.
Yeah. So you're like me. You think they can beat Florida at home?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Florida. Well, Florida is decimated with suspensions and injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're a shell of a football team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're playing minus about 20 scholarship players, and the quarterback is not very good. They're a very, very, very beatable team for South Carolina at home.
Yeah. Steve, from a player standpoint that you were, and also as a high school coach, but more from a player standpoint, getting the break, how refreshing is that for a player? And then, what did you think about when you came back from the break?
Well, the break, it came at a time towards the end, after 7 games that physically, everybody can use the week off. But, man, they just had a big win. And, all that momentum to carry it into this week. It's twofold, But I think they'll be fine. It's fall break, so the students are gone. And I would imagine they probably had maybe 3 practices, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. and then take some time off, and you get an extra couple of days to prepare for Vandy. You just take it one game at a time. And I think as Carolina fans, everyone is happy that it's 5-2. It hasn't looked, great at times, but there's 3 more games I think we can win on the schedule. And I think 8 wins is a great season.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me read this to you. 60.8% completion, 1,585 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, an average of 226 for Jake Bentley through 7 games. Is that good enough, in your opinion?
I think it's okay. They seem, pretty good numbers for, sophomore quarterback who's only started, 12, 15 games. So I think he's got some talent. Brian Edwards has really stepped up. I wish they could spread the ball around and get Hayden Hurst more catches. But I think Jake's having a good year. The most important stat there isn't the yards. It's the 12 touchdowns and the 4 picks. And Coach said earlier, they're just not turning it over and they're not beating themselves, and that gives you a chance to win, especially the way the defense played. But I think Jake's having a good year, very solid sophomore season for sure.
Yeah, Chuck, what do you think of those numbers?
Well, yeah, I think they're good. I think the hype and the expectations were a little bit overblown at the beginning of the year. And I think the break for him comes at a great time. I suspect that in the A&M game, I tell you, he got beat up. And, I don't think he's been as sharp the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's hurt, whatever. I mean, but I think he knew, I think the week off will be very good for him. But I tell you what he does. I mean, he manages his game. He made some good runs the other, he's not a great runner, but I tell you what, he makes some very, very timely runs, that have been crucial in the games that Carolina has won. And, and I just think he brings a lot to the table. The numbers don't tell the whole story.
Would either of you take the Tennessee job? Huh?
Well, I don't know about Steve, but I would take it. But I don't believe they're going to be calling me. But
oh, you would? You'd come out of retirement, huh?
Well, yeah, I might come out of retirement for that, but like I said, I don't think they'll be calling my number. But Tennessee, what people don't realize, Tennessee is not. It's not a top 20 job anymore. I mean, well, I'm just telling you.
Really?
I mean, there are going to be 5 or 6 players a year in the state of Tennessee that are SEC caliber players. You got to go to Atlanta. You got to go to Cincinnati. You got to go, to Western North Carolina. You got to go to Florida. I mean, and at one time their facilities were at the very top. They're good, but they don't match Clemson anymore. You don't see them beating Clemson in Georgia, and Clemson goes to Tennessee and takes the 2 top receivers in the state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's a good job. But it's not a Georgia job. It's not it's not a Florida at this point. And so it's just a tougher job than it was, in the 90s, in my opinion.
Yeah. Guys, enjoy the off week. We thank you very much and look forward to being back with you next week as we get back into action. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Clemson, Georgia Tech. We appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much. Steve Tannehill, go by and visit Steve. He's there much of the day at group therapy. If you are a Steve Tannehill fan, a Gamecock fan, he'll sign anything, I'm sure. So go by and see him at group therapy. And Coach Rita, you can't find him anywhere. He's a recluse. We're lucky to get him once a week. All right, top of the hour break. Much to come in hour number 2. We'll be back.
along with Wes and Frank and all the freshmen?
I mean, it's just like we try to learn. They try to learn the system, and we try to give our best to like teach them and like give an example of what it is. But they're picking up pretty fast, so yeah, everybody's getting better every after every practice.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thursday nights from downtown Columbia, Phil Kornbluth and Brian Leonard tonight. Will Pelagic is off. Professor Tom Hayes is off. I'll be off tomorrow night. Willie P. will be in the chair. He'll be sitting on the throne here in our studio tomorrow night. He can't wait to be here to take it on from all of you. 800-956-7266. By the way, Brian, would you have my walk-up music standing by, please? Thank you. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. If you'd like to join in, glad to get you on the program. We've got recruiting coming up in just a couple of moments here for you. We'll also be hearing from Dabo Swinney and from Brad Brownell, and maybe a little bit more from Frank Martin from SEC Media Day yesterday. So a lot still to come your way. Let's go to I missed the caller. Let's go to Malcolm in Lancaster. Malcolm, how are you, sir? Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, Phil, how are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Listen, got a question for you about the red shirt. I was looking over the depth chart for South Carolina on the offensive and defensive lines, and I'm wondering about maybe some guys that are red-shirted on both sides, and maybe what's your outlook or your observation for the future? I know we're losing some off the defensive line, and I'm wondering, of course, I know a lot depends on recruiting in February, but where do you think we stand on the offensive and defensive line as far as the rest of the year and maybe the future? Thank you. I enjoy your show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the question. Well, you look at South Carolina's offensive and defensive lines moving forward, and, they got to get better talent. I think they all agree with that, and that's why they're out recruiting the players that they are. You got to continue to replenish and develop. But if you look at the guys who are playing now and the progress that they're making and who's going to be coming back, you look at 2018 and you see very good possibilities. I mean, right now, the offensive line, they'll have Malik Young and Dennis Daly back at one tackle, and both are playing a lot. Of course, Young's been hurt. Daly's playing a lot and doing a pretty good job over there. So you'll have experienced guys there. Donnell Stanley and Sedarius Hutcherson both return. This assuming, of course, nobody decides to leave early for the NFL. I mean, Donnell's already a junior. He'll be draft eligible. This is his third year because he did not redshirt as a freshman, and that's too bad. He could have used that redshirt year, no doubt about it, and then he got hurt and missed all of last year. But he came back and which raises the question to me. He got hurt in the first game last year. I wonder why he didn't redshirt, why he didn't get a medical redshirt from last year. I'll have to investigate that further. Maybe there's an answer out there, and I just don't know it. But he'll be back. Hutcherson will be back. Now, they lose Knott and they lose Helms. Knott's doing a fine job for them at center, and Helms been hurt, but he was playing pretty well before he got hurt. They lose those two, and Zach Bailey stands to be back. So you've got three of your starters back on your offensive line. They lose DJ Park, who has just been a bit player in his career. And now they're redshirting several offensive linemen that they signed in this past class, guys that they hope will be able to come in and play for them moving forward. And that's what you want to do. You want to try to redshirt as many guys as you can and develop them. Eric Douglas, Summy Carlay, Jordan Rhodes, Jordan Carty, all being redshirted. That's not quite an entire offensive line, but those guys you can expect in the spring to move forward and get a chance to fill in and get some playing time next year. So, I mean, numbers-wise, they could probably stand to have a few more quality offensive linemen in the program. Some of these young guys have to be developed. They think they're pretty good. Of course, when you sign them, you think they can play, and you cross your fingers and you hope they can play. Time will be the determinator on that as to who can play and who cannot play. On the defensive line, you look at who returns, and, of course, Dante Sawyer, who's playing well, he leaves. But Kier Thomas getting a lot of quality snaps this year, he's back. Taylor Stallworth, who's playing well, he leaves. But Kobe Smith is playing some and playing pretty well. He's back. Ulrich Jones leaves. So you lose three down defensive linemen. And Ulrich Jones is a load and has played well for them, and he plays with a lot of emotion. You'll miss those three guys. But Kier Thomas, Kobe Smith, Javon Kinlaw are all playing a lot and are all contributing. Wanham is back. Fennell is back. Wanham has got all SEC written on him for 2018, if not this year, the way he's playing. And Fennell has given him some good snaps. So you got to replace three on the defensive line. And so taking a look at who they are redshirting there, as I look at the freshman class, Brad Johnson's playing. Aaron Sterling, I think, has played some on the defensive line. MJ Webb, I don't recall. I don't think he's played any. Maybe they're redshirting him. Don't hold me to it. I'm not sure. But you do have Webb, Sterling, and Johnson as the three signees for defensive end, defensive line who are in the freshman class, who will be working their way into position. And so that's what they have right now. So they'll be hurt some on the defensive line, losing those three guys. They're going to need some people to step up and and play well and develop as young players. But the guys who are playing behind the starters are getting good snaps, and I think for the most part, based on what Muschamp has said, I think he's pretty pleased with the way those young guys have played. He has singled out Kier Thomas, and he has singled out Kobe Smith. Shameik Blackshear even got in for a few plays against Tennessee. And, of course, it's time for Shameik to fish or cut bait at South Carolina. To be quite honest with you, he needs to play to the level that he's capable of. Or maybe he is, and maybe the people who made him a 5-star didn't know what they were talking about. I don't know. But he's not played well since he's been at South Carolina. And he's had some off-the-field issues as well. So that's not a good combination. So they'll have to do a little bit of work on the defensive line with those 3 departures, but they've got some young guys in the program who are getting some snaps this year. And with another year of off-season training and in the program should be, bigger and stronger and more experience for next year. All right, let's continue with your phone calls. We are headed to Pal in Great Falls. Hello, Pal. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Phil? I'm doing fine, buddy.
Good.
What reason I called at first of the week, there's a lot of discussion about Dabo playing Kelly Bryant hurt. I never heard anybody mention Kyle Parker. If you remember, Dabo pulled Kyle up, had him thinking he was Joe Theismann, Joe Montana, and got him. Kyle had a great future. A lot of people thought as a professional baseball player. And he talked him into playing football, messed around and got his shoulder messed up. And I think that was part of the reason Kyle wasn't as successful at baseball as people thought it was going to be. I'd like your opinion.
Well, he did make comments about how good a football player he thought Kyle Parker could be as a quarterback. I was in the room when he called Kyle Parker one of, he said, today Kyle Parker could go in and be among the top, how do you put it, top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL. This was back when Kyle was playing at Clemson. And he turned out to be a better baseball player. The shoulder thing, I don't know. I mean, look, he had a good baseball career. He had some time in the majors with the Rockies and maybe somebody else. So I can't sit here and testify to you that anything that happened in football in terms of his time there or any injuries hampered him or took away from his ability to stick in the major leagues. And we'll be right back.
More of your calls are coming up on Sports Talk. Hit us up at 800-956-7266.
I see where ESPN's pimping out another high school football game tonight. I refuse to watch. Sorry. You know, if they cared about the game itself, that would be one thing. But, you know, the time to watch a little bit of an ESPN high school broadcast, you know why they broadcast a high school game. It's to amplify a player in their top 100. In this case, it's Justin Fields, the quarterback out of Georgia. And they'll spend 90% of the game talking about Justin Fields and 10% talking about what's happening in the game. And, of course, they'll have their recruiting people on there to analyze him and break him down and rationalize why he, in their opinion, is the number one player in the country. It was the same way when Clowney was at South Point, when they televised South Point games. I'm telling you, the camera never left Clowney. He'd go to the sideline, sit on the bench, camera was on Clowney. You know, he'd go to John, camera was on Clowney. The rest of the players could care less. You're not in our top 100. We don't know you. That's what it is. Never have liked high school football on television, to be quite honest with you. High school football needs to be viewed in person, and all of the dangers of television, we don't need that in high school sports, but nobody listens to me when it comes to that stuff. Maybe they should have. One day you will realize that I'm right. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Speaking of high school, let's honor some high school kids with our report on the high school players of the week, courtesy of the High School Sports Report. Is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever, so get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. And your players of the week selected by the good folks at the High School Sports Report. 5A, Will Watts of Hillcrest. What a game. 34 of 46 for 405 yards in that upset of Greenwood last week. 4A Player of the Week, Trey Houston of Greer. 138 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 141 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns in a win. 3A Player of the Week, Mr. Football finalist Colton Bailey of Chapman. And he was 13 of 19 for 296 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he rushed for 40 yards and a touchdown. And tonight, big 3A showdown up in Inman as Newberry and Chapman, number 1 versus number 3. Both teams are 8-0. They are playing tonight. 2A Player of the Week is Noah Bell of Saluda. He passed for 234 yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushed for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. 1A Player of the Week is Jaquez Lucas of Lamar. He rushed for 165 yards and a touch and had an 80-yard touchdown pass. And the Skeeza Player of the Week is Zachariah Doe from John Paul II. 234 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns in a win on Friday night. There you go with the high school report tonight. We go to Pete in Heath Springs. Next up on Sports Talk. Good evening, Pete. How are you?
Hello, Phil.
How you doing, man?
I'm a big-time Clipper fan, so I want to ask you this here. Can you see that Travis can become a full-time starter? Real? I think Travis, or boy from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Feaster.
I never do it for Clemson. Yeah, Feaster. This kid right in the backfield, and I know we deep at right receiver. And it was disappointing on that Syracuse game how defense played, because this is the worst I ever seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, they had some breakdowns. They had some real breakdowns on defense. The secondary let some guys get behind them. They let Louisville gash them. Quarterback had some. I'm sorry, Syracuse. They let Syracuse gash them. Quarterback had some nice runs as well. Could I see Etienne becoming the full-time starter, well, they're still going to rotate their backs, whether it's Etienne or whether it's Feaster. It looks like Choice has moved ahead of C.J. Fuller. Those look like the top three. The thing about Etienne, though, I saw him out there. He's got a pass block, and I believe it was Etienne who was in the game when Bryant got clobbered. And he just totally whiffed on the linebacker who was blitzing.
Yeah, and I ain't never seen a running back can take to the house every time he can touch the ball like that.
Well, that's true now. He has got that breakaway speed, no question about it. No question about it.
Thank you. I'm about to hang up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your phone call. 800-956-7266. Speaking of Clemson, here's Dabo Swinney. After practice, they finished up last night with practice. We didn't get a chance to get this on the air because of the lateness of its arrival. So here's little Dabo talking about dealing with the first loss of the season.
There, but right now I'm enjoying just working on us. Fun to lose, and again we haven't had a lot of opportunity to lose, and I say opportunity because it is opportunity. I've always lived my life that with if you never had any adversity, you win, you make every kick, you catch every pass, you get every ribbon, you never lose, you never fail, you never have adversity, then you kind of depend on yourself. I've always looked at it as, when you have adversity in your life, it makes you depend on God, and refocus on things that matter. That's how I've always lived my life, and you get better if you're made of the right stuff. And it's not like we've had some life-altering – we just lost a ball game. But it is an opportunity to grow and to teach. And, sometimes you have a little bit more opportunity through a loss than you do through a win. And so especially with an open date, we got a lot of time. And we've taken full advantage of it. Just a lot of work on Clemson, a lot of work on our personnel. And we had a little live scrimmage work right here at the end today, and it was fun, unscripted. Just put the ball down and let's play. So it's good, but we've had a lot of tough meetings and a lot of comments and things that I think is really healthy for the team. And tomorrow will be another good day, and then I think it's. I'm really glad to get a break. I'm glad the coaches get a break. Just to kind of recharge and then let's see if we can charge back up the mountain. We didn't get knocked off the mountain. We had some safety gear, so we're still on it. But we got to turn around and charge back up. Not tiptoe. Let's charge back up the mountain and see if we can just go win the next game somehow, some way, and go from there. But they have responded, and hopefully they'll continue to as we move through the next few days.
Injuries, everybody coming back pretty healthy. Yep,
everybody's coming back pretty healthy.
Marcus Edmond, do you think you'll be able to get him back for today?
I hope so. I'm cautiously optimistic. He's doing the most this week that he's done, and we're gonna try to if he can have another couple of good days and then some more time off this weekend. I think we're gonna really ramp it up next week and just see where he is. He didn't break a bone, but he might as well have broke a bone. He probably would have been just as easy to heal, but he is much, much, much better and the furthest he's been and the closest he's been. So this has kind of been our target date for a while, and we'll see no more next week. But we're going to get him back, sooner than later at this point.
Tech looks really good this season. I'm not sure you've had a bye week before playing them. In fact, you had to play them on short prep a couple of times. I know on Thursday night. How nice is that to have that extra time?
It's nice whoever we were playing next. It's just good to just for us. First of all, just we need to take care of Clemson. I always tell we play Clemson every week, and we need to take care of the things that we control. We got 120 yards of penalties. We need to line up not in the neutral zone on 3rd and 7.
All right, Dabo Swinney, some of what he had to say. We've got more of that on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. If you want to hear more of Dabo focusing on Clemson, not too worried about Georgia Tech at this point. We'll be right back. All right, a couple more things on Clemson. You probably know this. They brought in a kicker, Drew Costa, out of Bishop, England, who's a Clemson student in engineering. A couple of years ago, he tried to win the job, but was beat out by Greg Hugel. And so now he's going to compete with Alex Spence, who's had issues, of course. And did you see? Let's see. This is not a big deal, I don't think. There was a video out of the Clemson locker room of a couple of guys boxing with boxing gloves. You know, horse playing, but boxing, and one guy was pummeling the other. It looked like about a 6-second video that's making the rounds. For some reason, Clemson felt the need. I guess some people in the media reached out to the PR guy for football, Joe Galbraith, and, you know, wanted a response on this, like it was something wrong. And he said that Dabo was going to deal with this with the team tonight in the team meeting, discuss this. So I don't know what the problem is. The problem is, A, he doesn't want his players boxing in the locker room. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. I mean, it's football guys being football guys. They had gloves on. I don't think it was an anger thing. It looked like they were just having a good time. Now, maybe somebody could have gotten hurt, which is possible. And as a coach, you're like, hey, you know, let's don't put ourselves out there in front of danger any more than necessary. Or B, he's mad that somebody taped it and put it out on social media inside their locker room, which is a breakdown in Clemson football security. See, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if the issue is the actual act of boxing or the fact that somebody in there recorded it and put it out on social media for all to dissect. So we'll find out probably Tuesday at his weekly press conference. I'm sure somebody will ask him about that. But hey, man, you live by social media, you die by social media. That's my opinion on that. Clemson's made a killing using social media to its favor, but I don't see anything wrong. I mean, to me, a couple of big, brawny linemen putting on the gloves and going at it in the locker room, hey, that's not a big deal to me unless somebody got hurt. I don't think anybody got hurt. All right, so there you go with that. Coming up, we'll hear from Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell. But first,
I said the King's in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the King's in the building. Tell me how you feeling.
Who's in the building?
I said the King's in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah.
All right, let's give you some recruiting here on this Thursday night. Self-anointed king sitting in here with the recruiting news. Defensive back Israel Mukuamu of Bossier City, Louisiana. I think we've probably talked about him more than anybody else because it's been a long-standing recruiting effort with him. He is taking another official visit this weekend to Florida State. That's where he's committed, of course, but he's not done as he continues to check out the landscape. He's been to South Carolina officially. He's been to Georgia officially. Now he's going to Florida State. And he's also been to Indiana. Louisville could be a 5th official visit for him. He continues to look around, checking out facilities and the atmosphere. He's in regular contact with Will Muschamp, who was in contact with him on Wednesday. Who he said Muschamp keeps telling him to come home. Of course, Mukuamu has family in the Rock Hill area, and he was at Berkeley High School before moving to Louisiana. So he still said Georgia and South Carolina are in the back of his head. They both want him to play corner. They have a lack of depth. He said South Carolina would be second on the list behind Florida State, but Georgia is right there too. He said Florida State doesn't have to do anything special this weekend to keep his commitment locked down. He's just going to take the visit and see how his family likes it. USC's continuing recruiting offensive lineman Jerome Carvin of Cordova, Tennessee. Offensive line coach Eric Wolford was at his school on Monday. He said that they have a good relationship. He's talking a lot to Muschamp and to Bobby Bentley, who's the area recruiter. He's taken officials to Tennessee and Mississippi State. He said his interest in the Gamecocks is strong enough that he's considering taking an official the weekend of the Florida game. He's scheduled to visit Arkansas December 1st, but said he wants to move that visit up. He's also looking at Florida, Texas A&M, and Alabama for possible visits. Offensive lineman Trey Hill, Warner Robins, Georgia, has made unofficials for games to Auburn, Florida, Florida State, and last weekend to Georgia. His last visit to Clemson was for the spring game, but he's planning to get back for a game this season. He said Dabo Swinney and Robbie Caldwell stay in touch with him about 3 to 4 times a week. And he likes what Clemson is doing. He likes the fact that Trevor Lawrence is going there. He said Ohio State and Southern Cal are 2 definite official visits, and Clemson is a possible official. Plus Georgia, Auburn, Texas, Florida, and Florida State are in the mix. 2019 wide receiver Ladarius Allison of York was offered today by Indiana. Running back Michael Salahuddin of Washington, a Southern Cal commitment, told Trojan Sports he'll take an official to Clemson. Tennessee commitment, offensive lineman Cade Mays of Knoxville, plans to visit Clemson for the Georgia Tech game, and he told TigerNet that he'll be back for another game later in November and for an official visit. I think that's going to be for the Citadel game. And 2019 defensive lineman Jaquez Sorrells of Largo, Florida, Florida commit, plans to visit Clemson for the Florida State game. All right, there you go with the recruiting tonight here on Sports Talk, available on our website, sportsstalksc.com, and on Twitter. Use hashtag #STRecruiting to take you right to our recruiting stories. Brad Brownell, Clemson basketball coach, met with media yesterday to preview his team for the upcoming season, and he talked about the fact that they're going to be a young team with a lot of newcomers.
You really look at our team, we almost have 7 guys that really didn't play much at all or any. Obviously, you can look at 4 freshmen, David Scarr, who sat out, Mark Donnell, the transfer from Michigan, and then Scott Spencer, who really had back surgery and was out most of last year. So we've almost got like 5 guys that are experienced players and good players. Then we got 7 guys that we're all trying to figure out. And we like the new guys that we have. When you think about that 7, we think that Amir Sims is, he's one of the most talented big players that we've recruited here. There's no question the new facility was a major impact in his recruitment and helped us beat off a lot of ACC schools to get him. He's because he's physically so strong, I think he's able to absorb a little bit more mentally because he's not as worried about surviving physically in a difficult position. So day in and day out, he doesn't come in beat up and like just trying to lick his wounds and survive. He's a guy that can handle the physicality of the position, but then also still play with enough poise and maturity to be able to do other things and to learn what we're trying to teach him and apply the drills to games. So really excited about Amir.
How does this team's identity change following the loss of a player like Jared Blossom?
Well, I don't know that like the identity in terms of how we play on the court will change as much. I just think it gives opportunities for other players. And I think that sometimes we all forget. I mean, that's one of the best things about coaching is watching the development of players and assisting in their development and watching them grow through their careers. Sometimes I have to remind everybody, KJ McDaniel and Jerron Blossom game, 2 all ACC players, were role players as freshmen. I think KJ played 9 minutes a game. Jerron was like a 4-point scorer. I mean, they weren't guys that you looked at and thought, I don't think anybody thought after their freshman year, wow, this guy's going to be first team all ACC. And so what I think the loss of a Jerron Blossom game and even Avery Holmes and Sidney Jate, 3 good seniors, does is it creates opportunities for other guys. And so now the Dante Grantham's going to get a little bit more of a chance to emerge, have more plays run for him. Gabe DeVoe, as senior, is going to have opportunities to do more things. The ball will be in his hands a little bit more to do more. Shelton and Marquise certainly, I think, will build upon what was a very good first year for them. And then the guy inside is going to be Elijah Thomas. I mean, I like to throw the ball inside. I think you need interior scoring, and I'll do it with any position, whether it's KJ McDaniel at the wing or Jerron Blossom game at the power forward spot or now Elijah Thomas at the 5. And he's
all right, Brad Brownell, a little preview of his team for this upcoming season. Of course, ACC Media Day Wednesday in Charlotte. We'll be there for that, and we'll be right back.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Okay, we're back. Give you an update here again on high school football. One big game going on tonight. Farm Bureau Insurance, our high school football updates. New auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau. You could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. Got to tell Brian something over the air here real quick because I forgot. Can you give Coach Ayers a call real quick? Because we forgot to call him a few minutes ago. That's on me. Totally slipped my mind because I got caught up in something else, and I know that he's standing by waiting for our call, and I do apologize. Doggone it. Meant to call him and just slipped by me. So let me give you the update on the football game. Chapman has taken a 14-0 lead on Newberry in that big showdown in 3A football. Chapman, the #1 team, defending state champion, and Newberry also undefeated. Both teams are 8-0, and of course, this game will go a long way towards that particular region. Maybe clinch the region title. Not 100% sure about that. Both teams, of course, undefeated in region play. So that game is in the second quarter, I think, up there in Inman. 14-0. Chapman on top as we welcome Coach Ayers. And I apologize. My bad. I fumbled there. Something you never like to see happen.
Exactly. Turnovers can cost you.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, listen, I'm a humble man with a small brain, so these things do happen. But let me tell you, I almost drove off the road. I shouldn't be looking at game stats when I'm driving, but how much did you throw for last week against the Citadel?
It was over 200, and that just shows you that we were struggling a little bit running the football. They had a great game plan for us and loaded the box, and we ended up having to throw, and we threw it well.
Yeah,
Brandon was very good in his mechanics, his accuracy, the offensive line. We gave up one sack. A guy just missed a block, and other than that, he was untouched and was able to do the things that he needed to do to help us win. So it was a difficult game. Citadel played really tough. I thought they had a great game plan for us, and on both sides of the ball, we came in at halftime, adjusted some things, and played a lot better defensively in the second half. I think they only had one time that they were in a situation where it was more plays than the 3 and out. So it was a great win, tough win, great environment. Ton of Wofford people showed up. Their side was packed, and of course the Corps cadets were not yelling for the Terriers. So
no, that would be a shocker.
It was special. Yeah,
that would be a shocker. But I tell you what, now you must have been a very good boy in the off season. Let's see, you beat Furman by 1, you beat Mercer by 1, you beat Gardner Webb by 3. You did handle PC a little bit. You beat Western in overtime by 7, and you beat the Citadel by 4. Somebody is smiling on you.
Well, I think there must be something to that. And I think, a lot of it, quite frankly, deals with we've got kids that have a tough mentality to them. They're guys that are going to compete no matter what the score is and no matter where the ball is located. You You like to have those games where everybody can play, but the thing that I know about this squad is they're battle tested, and we face a tremendous challenge in Sanford.
Mm-hmm.
They're excellent football team. They're nationally ranked as well. Their quarterback was the offensive player of the year in the conference, and they have some Jim Joes and Johnnies who can really play ball. So it's going to have to be a game where we're sharp. We can't give them opportunities from turnovers. We've got to be solid with taking care of the ball. We're going to have to throw the ball, and then defensively, we're going to have to somehow be able to get off the field. They try to snap the ball about every 15 to 20 seconds, and it's going to be a game where defensively you're going to have to be tough-minded because they're probably going to run the ball a little bit, but the majority of the time they're going to throw it, and rushing the passer can be physically draining, and quite frankly, there's times that you won't be able to get off the field, so you're going to have to suck it up and bow your neck and fight again. And we've worked hard this week. We've had a real good week of preparation. We're a little banged up from the Citadel game. When you play a game like that, as physical as it was, you're going to have that. But overall, looking forward to playing again. The one thing that I know for sure is that this season is flying by,
Mm-hmm.
and it's we had the Hall of Fame induction, and mentally I'm thinking it was last week, but it was 2 weeks ago. So I'm either losing my mind or the season's flying by.
It's the latter. Your mind is just fine. There's no question about that. The way you can rattle things off is fantastic. And I apologize for being late on the call. That's on me. And good luck to you guys this week against Sanford. Should be a heck of a game at your place at Gibbs Stadium. I expect a ton of Terriers to turn out and support you guys.
All right, Phil. You guys be blessed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I do apologize. We had Coach down for 7:30, and Mr. Stupid got caught up doing some other stuff. I'm not talking about you, Brian. I'm talking about me. Okay? Don't take it personal. That should be a heck of a game, though. Wofford 6-0. 4-0 in the league. Sanford 4-2, 2-1. Best passing team in the league, Sanford. Best pass defense in the league, Wofford. Best overall defense in the league, Wofford. Best offensive-minded coach in the league, maybe? Well, depending on what you like, Chris Hatcher. But you know what? Coach Ayers has got his guys playing great football, and you know who is sneaking up and starting to show some stuff if you're not paying attention? Furman. Clay Hendricks is starting to get it going with his team at Furman. And, it's not too late for them, depending on what happens ahead of them. It's not too late for them to have a say in this Southern Conference race as well. I mean, they have played everybody tough that they've lost to. Even NC State on the road, I mentioned a 1-point loss to Wofford. They had a big win last week over VMI. They've got a good game coming up this week. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's against Mercer. And that would be Bobby Lamb bringing his Mercer team up against his old team, his alma mater, the team he helped coach to some great times as well, the Furman Paladins. So watch out for Furman. They're 3-1 in the league and 4-3 overall. And yes, Mercer with Bobby Lamb is coming to Furman this weekend. That should be a heck of a game. All right, I am done for this week. Thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate all the phone calls. Willie P. will be back with you tomorrow night. We're all back together on Monday as we get into another big week of football. Thank you, Brian Leonard, and thank you for being with us, everybody. Have a great night.